Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to try out a new way of breaking down UFC events. I'm going to take every single fight that was on the card, everything from the prelim openers to the main event, putting them into a tier list, from absolutely terrible disgrace of a fight to the fight of the night, in my opinion. That is how we're going to be ranking them, and I'm going to discuss them as we're going, but I wanted to do a new way of breaking down fight cards to make it a little bit more entertaining. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider a like, comment, subscribe. Video ideas are welcome in the comment section below. And with that out of the way, let's get started. The first fight, the prelim opener, is going to be Thomas Peterson versus Jamal Pogus. I had to rewatch it purely because, I'm not going to lie to you, this was pretty forgettable. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't terrible. It was just extremely forgettable. Not going to be terrible, not bad, none of those. I'm going to say decent. Off the top of my head, Peterson versus Pogus, slightly above average for unranked heavyweights. They had decent cardio for that division. Usually when you're seeing two unranked heavyweights fight each other, it is one decent round and then heavy breathing for the next 10 minutes. This one, it was two decent rounds and the last round had good moments, but, heavy breathing in between. I think the judges got it right. Pogues did enough. Needs to work on his wrestling, though. Wrestling defense was -3. And he's not the only one that had some pretty bad, counter wrestling. Sprawls were lacking on this card. But we'll get to that near the main event. But just know, decent. Next one we're going to be talking about is going to be Landon Quinones versus Markel Medeiros. I'm so sorry if I say any of these wrong, but you know what? Part of me's not even mad. Decent. Mid fight. In some cases, a mid fight is worse than a bad fight because at least a bad fight is memorable. But I would say this is going to be at the very bottom of our decent. Think of our decent as our mid category. Didn't stick out to mind at all. Just, I'm struggling to think of something that was memorable about this fight. Decent scraps here and there. Low blows. There's so many low blows on this card. What was going on? It felt like people, I expect it from heavyweights, just, utilizing low blows to get a break because, the cardio is already lacking. But was everybody taking a break? And some of these weren't even low blows. These were Kamaru Usman low blows. This was a repeated offense throughout the entire card. Breaks up the action. Whenever the fight was starting to get good, boom, pause the whole thing, and then we have to re-rev up the entire fight. Actually, I might put this in bad. It just barely misses decent. It was kind of a bad fight, if I'm going to be honest with you. Next fight, I'm definitely going to say this one on. Luana Carolina versus Julia Stolarenko. How do you miss... Oh my... Ugh. This fight pissed me off, actually. I'm going to say it's bad. Here's the thing. Upon a rewatch, it's pretty memorable. Some of the grappling exchanges were pretty good. My goodness, though. Stop going to your back to hunt down a submission, and you're just going to be giving up position. I get it, but at the same time, it was frustrating to watch. Also, the stoppage on this fight was terrible. How is it we got Rowan Dolidze, who really, the fight should have been called right after that, and something else happened that we're going to talk about. But we're going to call this a TKO off of, little pitter-patter blows. I know somebody's going to say, well, her arm was stuck. Brother, we had 8 seconds left. She could have kept going. These were pitter-patter punches. These weren't crazy ground and pound, at least not in the later end of it. And in all honesty, it wouldn't bother you as much as if you couldn't make the case that she could have won that fight to an opponent that missed weight at 125. She weighed in at 129 pounds, lost 20% of her fight purse. It just always sucks when you see somebody miss weight and then win a fight that you could have argued she lost. Granted, I honestly probably would have given it to Julia, but... Wait, am I saying that right? Yeah, Luana. I would have given it to Luana. Still a close fight, you can argue it, and the judges were pretty off this night, I'm not even going to lie. Next up is going to be Lee versus Blake Builder. I'm sorry, I'm not going to offend people by saying that. Lee versus Blake Builder. I like it. I like Lee. This is going to be our first good fight of the card. In all honesty, I was about to fall asleep after watching all three of these back to back. Like, I'm like, you know, those sleepy eyes that you're starting to get. Like, you're in the middle of class, head is a bobbing. This fight woke me up. I like Lee. Maybe it's because all the other fights around it were just mid, lower than mid. And then Lee comes in and puts on a pretty good performance that I am impressed by. Builder is slightly above can level. Like, as far as cans go, slightly above that. Lee's pretty good. He won the tournament that the UFC did a while back. I like this. I like the South Korean. I'm looking forward to see what we can get in the future. He needs to work on a few things, though. Like, he's good just about everywhere. Striking, I want to see him capitalize a little bit more. He reminds me of a Song Yadong, but think of Song Yadong with less crack behind those punches. Very varied combos, goes to the body, goes to the head, mixes up with leg kicks every once in a while. He needs to utilize that more. Decent submissions, good takedown. Like, good misses great on everything. Next up is going to be Thimba Garimbo versus Pete Rodriguez. Is it just me, or does Pete Rodriguez look like a creative fighter from UFC 5? Like, I'm trying not to be mean, but at the same time, like, that's all I was thinking when this fight started. And there wasn't a lot to think about. This was a outrageously, like, short fight, and I'm going to say Garimba goes in our good category. If you think of a finish instantly makes you a good fight, you're probably right. I just don't want to put it above Lee just because we didn't see enough. But Garimba, if this fight woke me up, this got me back into the card. This was a snooze fest of a card, the biggest mech card I've seen in a while. But Garimba got the momentum back up, and for that, he gets to go in our good, our A tier. Next up is our fight of the night, Charles Johnson versus Azat Maksum. I'm so sorry if I say your name wrong. Charles Johnson versus Azat Maksum. Not a robbery. I'm sorry. I had to watch it back. Not a robbery. Like, the only way you can say it was a robbery if you think Maksum got a 10-8, and even then it would have been a draw. And I don't think you could rule this fight a draw. Let me tell you how I score this fight. Maksum undeniably won round one. Charles Johnson just wasn't super locked in the first, and what I think happened is Maksum got ahead early, and it's hard mentally to get past that when you could have been finished to get back in the game. Charles Johnson came back in the second. I think you give him the second. Some people were arguing Maksum could have won the second. I personally thought Charles Johnson won. If you think Maksum won, you give round number 1 and round number 2 to him. Charles Johnson won round number 3. Absolutely no questions asked. And I think he won round number 2. And I think the takedown at the end of the fight sealed his fate for Maksum. And I think the judges got it right. Very close fight. People calling it a robbery. I'm sorry. I know some people were bringing up in like a comment section on Instagram, well, Maksum was controlling the cage far better. They don't even take that into account until we get past damage, output, striking acumen. Like, we have a lot of other categories to get through before you put that into account. People just looked at that because of the Khamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns fight, and now everybody thinks octagon control wins you the fight. Maksum would get takedowns but wouldn't hold them for very long, therefore they kind of are null and void. Very back and forth fight. I think you can make a very solid argument this is fight of the night. To be honest, there wasn't a ton of competition, but this fight got me hyped. Okay, like we had 3 meh, 3 good. And then, you're going to see in a second. I think the judges got it right. I think it was a fight of the night. I'm happy he got the $50K bonus. Yeah, I think they got it right. Next up, Molly the Can versus, what's this chick's name? Diana Belbita. Okay. I'm going to say the nice stuff before I say the mean stuff. Molly McCann made the right decision going down a weight class. She just doesn't have the power of, I don't even want to say high, yeah, let's just say higher weight class for women. Did not look good in her last fight. And to be honest, personality-wise, she was never the best. So as soon as she failed, people were going to just destroy her in every comment section imaginable. She handled it pretty good. She didn't pull an Ian Gary and turn off his comment sections because he doesn't want to get cyberbullied. Molly McCann took it on the chin, got better, and I will give her that. Actually, I don't even think I have many mean things to say. Molly McCann did it. I'm still not sold on her. I still think she's slightly above Can level. That's just the reality of women's MMA. You can be undefeated your entire career. The moment you fight somebody who has fought for a title or is the champion, you just get absolutely smoked and then fraud checked immediately. I'm going to say this was a good fight. This was a good fight. Based off every other fight on the card, granted, if this was on a different card, this would probably make decent. But because of everything else that was on this card, I think Molly McCann did enough. Performance of the night, guaranteed. Molly McCann gets into our good category. Behind these two. Like, I can't stress that enough. Next up, the based lord himself, Charles Radke versus Gilbert Urbina. Dude, the power on Charles Radke is insane. Dude, he arguably KO'd him 2 times. Like he hit him with the same check hook that put him down finally. Like, the based lord himself came back. And they were even talking about it in the commentary booth. Like, he was hyper emotional. He didn't know what he was saying. Listen, I didn't mind it. I thought that shit was funny. The crowd was terrible that day. I think you should be allowed to say that in a post-fight speech when the crowd is going against you. I mean, like, where's our sense of sport? Like, come on. Good fight. Really good fight. Not a fight of the night. The fact is Urbina didn't do enough to justify a fight of the night. If you wanted to argue any other fight should be a fight of the night, you would have to go with this one versus Lee versus Bilder. This one, not great. Good. Above Garimba. Yes. Actually, just because of how radically entertaining it was, I'll put it at the top of good. Yeah, I'll put it there. Next up, oh no, this one pissed me off. Kasirov versus Magomed Muradov. I know I'm gonna get crucified in the comment section for that. Terrible. 30 seconds into the fight that I was very interested in seeing, ends the fight via eye poke. How many low blows and eye pokes were going on? Like, some of these had to be intentional, and we're going to get the one that I do believe was 100% intentional in a minute. This was terrible. It wasn't even a fight. It was 30 seconds of distance management and an eye poke that ends the fight. And that was a bad eye poke. That was thumbnail in the eye, straight. Like, I don't think... Those really suck because, yes, you still have one eye. The problem is you are going to be fighting the rest of the fight compromised, pretty heavily compromised, because it's not just that you're losing an eye. The irritation in one eye is going to cause the other eye to water because your eyes are sympathetic to each other. So really, he's blind. Like, that's the reality. 11 seconds into the fight. Like, the fact is if he kept going, he would have lost that fight. It was even enough, he would have lost that fight. I don't blame him for saying he can't go on. Still a terrible fight. I want them to reschedule this. Yeah, please just reschedule it. Like, there's not much I can say about it. Easily the worst fight of the entire card, because it wasn't a fight. Next up. Yep, I completely forgot this one. Okay, we're going to go Randy Brown, and then I'll add that one in at the very end if you guys are interested, because, let's be real, that was not a great fight. Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu. I was cracking up at that. Randy Brown did good. It was a good fight. However, that was the most intentional eye poke I have ever seen. That was so obviously meant to be intentional. He just wanted to break because those leg kicks were effing him up. Like, Muslim Salikov was landing those heavy leg kicks, and you can see him starting to stutter step on that front foot. Not stutter step. Faint on the front foot because now the muscle's starting to give out. Randy Brown, to get, let's be real, some break time, eye poked him. That was an intentional eye poke. That was bad. Like, no contest, like near no contest level bad. Great fight. Great finish. Not the best finish. I'm going to say above Molly McCann. Not as good as Garimba. Not as good a fight as Lee. Not as good a finish as Radke. But definitely above McCann. And let me just make something very perfectly clear here. This is in comparison to the other fights on the card. If you compare this to, like, any numbered card, yeah, these should probably be just decent. Next up, Moicano versus Drew Dober, the Giga Chad. People are arguing Drew Dober should have won based off damage. And I do understand what you're saying, but in my mind, Drew Dober fought Islam Makhachev and his grappling look better than what happened with Moicano. If a rocked Moicano can hold you down in half guard, and that's one thing, people are looking at Moicano like, oh, Moicano did absolutely nothing from half guard. How can you even justify that? He did just enough for them not to break it up. Okay, that's really what happened. He did just enough so they wouldn't break it up, give him the control time, landed some punches, but got lat dropped like a effer by Drew Dober. That was a Chad lat drop. That was beautiful. And then, what I think happened, Drew Dober exhausted, kind of feeling himself a little bit too much, getting a little bit too overconfident, because he's 180 pounds fighting at 155. He holds the record for heaviest lightweight on the night of a 155 bout. I'm not kidding. He beats out Michael Chandler for heaviest lightweight. And Jalen Turner. That's actually really wild to think about. But Drew Dober tries to hit a lat drop again. You might as well just call that a guard pull, and I think that did lose him the fight in that final round because it was that close. Moicano, it's not that Moicano deserved to win, but I'm happy he did because of something else that happens in a second. But Drew Dober did not deserve to win. This was, I'm going to say, the bottom of decent because there was good moments, but oh my gosh, was it making me mad. Oh yeah, I'm happy Moicano won. Bro goes on the microphone talking about how his dad at 63 years old was able to have a baby and how he wants to get American citizenship, become a SWAT officer, fight the bad guys to make America great again. And calls the MMA guru a pig because of this beef that's been going on for the past 2 years. You gotta love it. What I think you should do next, and I'm not gonna make a separate video for this because, frankly, I don't think a lot of people care for a lot of people on this card. I'm going to say Moicano. Okay. Either make Drew Dober fight Paddy Pimblett, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think the UFC is going to sidestep Drew Dober to protect Paddy because I do think Drew Dober beats up Paddy Pimblett even after this performance. I think you do Moicano versus Paddy Pimblett. Let's be real here. Paddy Pimblett is going to get fraud checked so hard in his next few fights. Paddy, I don't even understand how bro's a star, to be completely honest with you. Moicano, despite not having a great style, but neither does Paddy, to be frank with you, Moicano is way better on the microphone, not even comparable to Paddy Pimblett. Have them fight each other. Let Moicano just cannibalize the star power of Paddy Pimblett and let him be your new star. Okay? That's what you should do. I don't think they're going to do that because I think the UFC is just in denial of the stock they put into Paddy Pimblett and are just going to protect him for the rest of his career until they just can't do it anymore. And next up is our main event, Roman Dolidze versus Imavov. Okay, we have a lot to get into. Okay. Herb Dean wanted death. Okay. Herb Dean wanted violence that night. Was it a good call? Turned out to be. Me personally, I would have ended that fight. I thought Imavov did enough to win that fight, but... And to be frank with you, I think you could. I don't think Dolidze, outside of a few grappling exchanges and spamming overhand rights, was... I think he was still rattled that entire time. I kept on hearing people say Dolidze was scared to get into a striking battle with Imavov. What's going on with his striking? Dolidze arguably should have lost the fight in round one. Yes, you're probably not going to have the same level of confidence you walked into it with. Was getting the better of Imavov in the grappling exchanges. Imavov's going to have to work on that grappling because now we have people like Ikram Aliskerov, Khamzat Chimaev, Bo Nickel coming up that have way better grappling than Dolidze. Wrestling than Dolidze that are going to get Imavov down. And I think that would be a fun fight. If Bo Nickel can win his next fight, give him Imavov. Like, let's do it, dude. That sounds fun. The grounded opponent rule. The UFC referees need to be re-educated on what a grounded opponent is. They've not just messed up on here. They've also messed up on the Movsar Evloev fight. Let me tell you what the actual rules is for a grounded opponent. It is palms on the ground, a weight-bearing limb on the ground, 3 points of contact. Your palm has to touch the ground. If you watch that, what actually happened, it was only the fingertips. Fingertips do not count. Knuckles do not count. It happened with Movsar Evloev. Those were not illegal blows. Imavov could have finished the fight, but the referees called it, Herb Dean called it a low blow, and robbed Imavov of a finish. That's what really happened here. And, oh yeah, my dogs were barking, so I'm going to redo that take. I'm not sure how much we got from there. Roman Dolidze did not do good. Okay. Arguably lost. Arguably should have been finished in the first round. The low blow was not a low blow. Fingertips on the mat do not count as a low blow. It is palm on the ground. How they call it is a weight-bearing limb, 3 points of contact on the mat. The Weasel's done a breakdown on it for the Movsar Evloev controversy, and did it for this fight as well. It is not a low blow. The UFC robbed Imavov of a finish. That is what happened. And from what I hear, California wants to completely redo that rule, and to be honest with you, I am all for it. Terrible. And I'm just going to say it. This was a bad fight. This was a bad main event. Moicano versus Drew Dober, as mid of a fight that should have been the main event fight. It ended like a main event should. Imavov has unresolved beef with Chris Curtis, and instead of calling out Chris Curtis for a fight, which is a fight that I want to see, he calls out Sean Strickland, a dude who schooled him for 5 rounds straight and made it look like he'd never striked in his entire life. This was a bad fight. Not the worst fight. It was a bad fight. Overall, boring card, mid-card. The prelims were better than the main card. There's not much to say about it. I'm going to rate this card probably a solid 5 out of 10. Very boring, low blows, low blow, eye poke, intentional eye poke. That was the story of this card. But hey, if you liked it, tell me why I'm wrong in the comment section below. I don't think there's going to be many of you. And tell me what you think about this new style of breaking down fight cards. I just want to do it in a more fun way than I've done it previously. Instead of me just ranting about it, I'll rant about it and then put it in a tier list and throw jokes in along the way. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. I got another video either coming out tonight or tomorrow morning. You'll see it. And thank you everybody for watching. Adios.